A poll that we did with faith voters that kindness really matters, and I think Joe Biden temperamentally and Vice President-elect Harris will be the same way. I think they can act with an administration that's kind, but also competent. And then, frankly, to be honest and to tell these voters what they are going to do and that they're going to do those things that they promised they were going to do. So I believe that kindness and competency and honesty will really go a long way. Now, look, there's some big policy issues that evangelical voters and white Catholic voters have been told matter to them. And I don't think the Biden administration should back off on those. In fact, there's a lot of voters who are rethinking some of the very classic arguments that have been made for why religious voters should stick with Republicans, like religious liberty and like caring for the poor and reproductive rights. These are issues that many people are rethinking. And they've been told over and over that if you're going to be faithful, you have to be a Republican. And they've watched Donald Trump and these other Republicans turn their backs on the very issues that they care so much about and the way that they want a leader to act in the world. And this is a powerful opportunity, not only for Joe Biden, but for so many Democrats. And at Vote Common Good, we work hard to be sure that Democratic candidates know that faith voters are voters that they really can address, they can talk to, and they should ask for their vote. And we say to faith voters, consider Democrats. Even if in your life up till this point you've always heard that to be faithful you have to be a Republican, we just remind them that that's not at all true.
I want to talk about that decline in support for the president. New York Times 2020 election exit poll showed that his support from evangelicals dropped from 81% in 2016 to 76% in 2020. It's 5 percentage points. I know Michigan specifically saw a drop in Trump supporters, particularly among evangelicals. Has anybody been able to pinpoint the reason for that decline? I mean, obviously we talk about the priority of policy for evangelicals, and I know you're talking about kindness, but specifically, do we know what turned them away from this president?
We do. At Vote Common Good, we spend a lot of time trying to make those changes a reality and trying to understand what happened. And while a lot of us want to believe that we vote for our politicians based on policy, it's really much more about identity, that we feel connected to a candidate. And what's happened with the Trump administration, and those numbers have even cratered further since the end of the election and his support of the insurrection, that what voters have said is, I don't see myself in the Republican Party and I can't see myself supporting this president any longer. It wasn't just policy. It's one of the mistakes we make when those of us who think so much about politics, and certainly politicians, we think that policy goes first. Very often it's identity that goes first, and then people adjust their policies and their policy beliefs to fit their political identity.
Yeah, well, I think it's deeper than that. I think it's much more subtleties of something that they don't talk about, and most evangelicals are white people, and my assessment is that there's some underlying racism that is a part of all of that too, and that the evangelicals couldn't have possibly say, okay, we follow Christ and we're okay with the insurrection. I mean, the insurrection really brought home to everyone that's basically in the middle that, and I'm talking about, okay, I'm going to say 2 million of the Trump supporters were that what you saw in the insurrection, and that the other 5 million were your neighbors and the regular people that you had interaction with, and that quote unquote talked about policy. But I still think that in them there was with Trump, he was addressing their loss of power, their loss of control in our society, and he represented the fight for them, like Terry Moran was saying, fight for them to being a minority. You know, when we look out over our lives in many ways, we don't, we as a people want to be recognized on an equal playing field. Most of us do. You know what I mean? Especially the minorities, those who were minorities. We no longer are that. And the ones that have been in power, the ones that have had say over policy, have had say over, you know, where you go in the society. My uncle believed that, like India, we have a caste system. He believed that before he died, that, you know, you could only go so far. Well, yeah, that was true. I didn't want to believe it because I'm a patriot, despite my color, despite what this country is. And I've always fought through a lot of things in this country that has said that I couldn't, you know, that I couldn't do it. I got a record. I keep it 100, and I worked in the medical field. I've got a record, and I've, you know, worked at halfway houses, and I've got a record, and I've, you know, been in jail, and I've taken people to jail as a counselor. I was on both sides of on the front line of the drug war. So I've always fought my way through what they said I couldn't be, what the caste system in this country said I couldn't be. Now, perhaps I am a minority when it comes to that. I'm a token because of that. And to keep it real, it might have been because of my lighter skin. I've seen darker skinned brothers that have had a tough time, you know, or who have had dreads, you know, have had a tough time breaking through those barriers. The point I'm making, and I want to get back to the evangelicals and even religion in our country. We must realize that we can't allow people to say, this is why I believed in Donald Trump, because of his policies. We can't allow them to stand on that. Because it wasn't their policy. It was something underlying. It was an underlying racism that they haven't come to grips with. It's an underlying, and in black folks, it's our underlying defeatism that we have not fought our way through it. We didn't flood, you know, for every person that goes into court and makes a deal, you know, with the prosecutors or whatever, we're allowing them to maintain. If we all flooded the court systems and said, you know what, okay, I'm guilty, but, you know, no, I'm going to wait on that. You know what I mean? If we all fought that way, if we understood the law, if we weren't afraid, if our defeatism didn't allow, if we fought away our defeatism, we wouldn't allow ourselves to say, you know what, yeah, I'll take that, or I'm afraid to go in front of a trial in front of, you know, all white jury, or mostly white jury, and get convicted and do more time. You know what I'm saying? If all of us did that, think about what would have happened in the judiciary. If we all stayed in an ability to fight for our right to read and to understand and flood the gates of knowledge and books. Think about it. You know what I mean? On both sides, there are things that kept us separated. Things that kept this caste system from moving forward. It kept this caste system moving forward. our defeatism, their racism. So both sides kept it going. But now we're in that moment when we have voted. We all came out and voted, and we said, you know what? No more of this. We're not going to allow any more of this. And what you saw in the insurrection was that they said, how are you doing this? We're gonna do all of you. And see, they were coming after all of the Republicans. They were coming after Pence too. So let's look at it for really what it is. Why Mike Pence didn't invoke the 24th Amendment. Why there were still Republicans on the House floor that said, you know what? No, we're gonna stick with Trump. They're racist and they're afraid of being a minority. Now that we've done our part in the election, let's get out, let's read, let's flood those gates, let's get those people out of out of the judiciary and into the system, so that we can make the system look like we are, look like the demographic change that is coming. I'll see you next time.